This is episode 30 of the Brand Authority Podcast. Today, I have a special guest. I'm chatting with Garrett Moon, the CEO and co-founder of CoSchedule. So stick around.
This is the Brand Authority Podcast, the show for growth-driven leaders who want to win more customers, increase revenue, and gain the competitive edge. Broadcasting from sunny Los Angeles, here's your host, Rebekah Radice.
Well, hello and welcome back. Hope your week is flowing by super fast. I am back in the studio after a week and a half of travel, and if you follow this podcast, you know that I am in the midst of going on the road for the rest of the year. So very exciting to really rework my processes and workflow and how all of the communication, including this podcast, is going to happen going forward. So very exciting. I always find it such an amazing opportunity when we get the chance to step back, step away from our business, and really see it from an outside looking in. And that is exactly why I am so excited to introduce you to my guest today. It's Garrett Moon, and Garrett is the CEO and co-founder of CoSchedule. And if you have been in the digital marketing, social media, content marketing space, you know who CoSchedule is. But what you might not know is CoSchedule's history. So Garrett is taking CoSchedule from zilch, nada, zero, to 1.5 million monthly page views, 240,000 email subscribers, 9,000 plus customers, and all of that in less than 4 years. And the beautiful part about all of that is he didn't keep all of his learnings to himself. He has just released and just published a book called The 10X Marketing Formula. Now, the premise behind the book is that content marketing as we know it is dead. And I know that a lot of us have been talking about that for quite some time. And Garrett realized that quite some time ago when he started CoSchedule. And then in 2017, he decided to take all of that they have put into practice, that they have learned, that they have tested over time, and write the book on how to short circuit content marketing by creating what he calls competition-free content that garners 10x results. I know you are going to love this conversation. Garrett is a wealth of information. And once you're done here, you're going to want to run out and get his brand new book, The 10X Marketing Formula. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. Here's Garrett Moon. Well, hello and welcome so much, Garrett. We have been talking about getting you here on the show for quite some time, and I am thrilled to finally get to sit down with you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, Rebekah. I can't wait to talk a little bit about marketing and how to do it better and faster and with more results. It's always fun.
Yes, definitely a conversation that always excites me. And let's just start from the top. I think your book's title kind of tips off the premise, but I would love to hear from you. What was the reason that you decided to write the 10X Marketing Formula?
Yeah, I think there's a few different places. One, at CoSchedule, we have lots of customers, obviously, that are doing marketing and, looking to build their brand, looking to build awareness for their company or their agency that they're working for. And they've all bought into the content marketing revolution, right? The idea that you can create value-based content, publish it to your audience, build trust, and build a customer base over time. And, they're doing it, they're executing it, they're building their editorial calendars, they're building their plans, they're doing all of the right things, but they're kind of coming up a little empty sometimes, right? And feeling like, hey, I was sold this really, this big idea. We were going to build this audience. We were going to, provide value and return for our business, and we're not always seeing the results we need. We're not seeing them consistently enough. And I think it's just kind of that apex of time in the content marketing life cycle, as an industry where we're all kind of starting to look around and say, okay, like what's really providing the results? Where are we really providing value to our brand? And I felt like I was just getting these questions and getting, just concerns from people in the industry around that topic. right in our company, talking to customers, when I was out on the road doing speaking and going to different conferences and just visiting with people, it just always, that subject always came up. And I just felt like, at CoSchedule, we had a really amazing growth trajectory built on content marketing, built on content. And I felt like we had, something in our story could really contribute and help people find the results that they really wanted to be seeking with content marketing.
Yeah, and I love what you talk about in terms of ditching the bloated marketing plans, which I think that's exactly what we were doing. This had evolved into this gigantic idea of what content marketing had to be in order for us to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think of there's, Gartner has something called the Gartner's 5-step hype cycle. And it kind of tells this story and this arc of how new technology is adopted. And I think it really plays well into how new methods in terms of marketing or new strategies that people adopt can be seen as well, particularly once we kind of take into how quickly information, how quickly strategies can travel online. Hype cycle really looks like something where there's a trigger, there's the idea or the new strategy, and it shoots straight to the top in terms of adoption and expectations. And so, kind of with that hype cycle, our expectations of what content marketing, what social marketing is going to do for us go sky high. And that's when we all jump on board. That's when we start doing it. That's when we get involved with the strategy. And then over time, we kind of end up in this very low point, this sort of trough of disillusionment where we're kind of looking around saying, where were those numbers that I was promised, or where was the results that I expected from this? And so I think it's sort of that time when you have to kind of take a step back and say, okay, we've probably been using some of those things from the past, some of those ideas from the past, like those bloated marketing plans, and we've probably been using some of these new techniques, but we really need to assess here and pick up and double down on the things that are working and get rid of some of the things that aren't working so well so that we can really achieve value for our brand and business.
I love that. Just the whole idea of picking and choosing where you're actually spending your time instead of trying to be everything to everybody. And it seems that we definitely did get to that bloated stage, but so many people didn't know how to dial it back.
Right.
And your book gives that complete framework. Can you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, we call it the 10X marketing formula. And really what I did is I started to look at what were the things that, in our journey at CoSchedule, we're a startup, based out of North Dakota. So, 2013, late 2013, we launched our product to the world. And I kind of talk about that story that as a startup, me and my co-founder, in our previous time had been running a marketing agency ourselves. Before that, we'd been working in an advertising agency. So we've always had that, marketing in our blood in terms of, our day-to-day work. But jumping into the software industry where we weren't actually helping people execute their marketing, we were now creating a product. We were now selling a product. We were now doing marketing for ourselves in a very different way. And, I tell that story that as a startup, and in particular as a marketing agency that had to give up client projects in order to build this software that we really felt was necessary in the market, we started with zero. We had this day where it was results or die. Like either CoSchedule gets customers, it's able to build an audience, it's able to get its message out there, or it's going to have to go away. And we're going to have put forth a lot of risk for nothing. And so, I sort of looking at that, what did that mentality get us? How did we become successful? We put our eggs into the content marketing basket. We started creating content 5 days a week. We started embracing email marketing. We started utilizing social media as a way to publish, content, to share our content, communicate with influencers, all those different types of things that you do. And, we kind of went on this journey where we found lots of things that didn't work so well, lots of mistakes along the way. But we also found a lot of things that really struck a chord with our audience and really allowed us, in particular, some very key strategic steps that we made along the way that we felt allowed us to really leapfrog our competition and, grow our audience faster than them, build an audience with more authority than they were able to do because we sort of saw things differently and tried some new things. So the book tells a bit of that story, but, more importantly, it tells the reader, these are some of the things that did not work for us so well. And these are some of the things that we really found made progress happen for us. And we kind of put that together in a formula called the 10X marketing formula that anybody can, pick up, go through, follow the exercises and some of the strategies that we use, and not just copy what we did. We don't want that to happen. What we really want is to provide a blueprint for them to find their own 10X marketing formula in their own way to multiply the results that they're getting from their marketing by 10 times.
Well, and that copycat marketing that you allude to, I know you talk a lot about that as well, and something we certainly see a lot of, that Me Too modeling, where it's, well, so-and-so's doing it and it looks great. It's working for them. So I'm just going to swipe all of those ideas instead of doing exactly what you walk people through, which is testing and iterating and making sure that you're hitting the mark based off of your audience. And the whole mind shift that you talk about, I think, plays a huge role in that as well.
Yeah, I think so. And I think I'm a startup founder, so I love to think in terms of frameworks. As you're growing your team, and expanding the marketing team, expanding our product team or our sales team. We always try to have to find these ways to train people quickly. And I love these sort of frameworks, like these concepts that you can use that are very simple to grasp onto, very simple to reproduce, and you can take them to all kinds of different meetings. So I like to think of the book as sort of a collection of those types of frameworks that we use. And it's built on one of our favorite, which is 10X versus 10%, which is this idea of saying, hey, is this project that we're doing, is it a 10X type project? Is it a project that has the ability to potentially multiply the results we're getting by 10 times? Or is it more of a 10% project where it's not necessarily bad to do, but it's not something that's going to, shoot us, into the stratosphere in terms of results we're getting. And, that's an example of just kind of a framework that you can start to think about in terms of evaluate, okay, what projects are we doing that really give us the ability to jump forward and to get big results, and which ones are the ones that are good, but maybe not the ones that are going to get us somewhere. And I think that's where some of that copycat marketing happens is, copycat marketing is not always bad, right? Like you can get good ideas from others, and you can get good ideas from the Co-Schedule blog and from many other books, but sometimes they're not the 10X projects that you really need to reframe how you're doing marketing and how you're communicating with your audience. So we got to find ways to sort of jumpstart that and move things forward.
Well, and that's exactly, in my opinion, what this book is all about. I think you call them strategic shortcuts, but they really do allow you to ideate in a way that thinks outside of what you're already currently doing, and really get focused on how can you pave your own way, how can you stay in your own lane, and create competition or rather create content that you call competition free, which I love the sound of that.
Yeah. This was really kind of one of my favorite breakthroughs that our marketing team and myself made in terms of starting to reset how we thought about creating content. And there's another startup that I talk about in the book called named Groove, and it's a really interesting example where they were doing what I would call regular content marketing, sort of your run of the mill strategy. They provided help desk software. They made a software that companies like Co-Schedule could buy that would allow us to communicate and provide customer support to our customers that are using our tool. And they had a blog about, what would you imagine their blog would be about? Customer support, right? How to provide really good customer support, 5 tips on this, how to rewrite and create useful help docs. So, useful things, valuable things, but not really anything that was giving them a lot of growth, right? They had a good blog. They had 10,000 email subscribers or something at the time. And the CEO, Alex Turnbull, turned to his team and I think sent him an email late in the night one night and said, you know what, our blog sucks. We need to rethink this. We have to do something different. And his point wasn't that it's bad, right? It was a fine blog, but it was that, this isn't really a growth engine for us. This really isn't going to give us the results we need long term. And he said, we need to find something that gives us a different approach, that allows us to approach the market differently. And what they ended up finding was something that I call competition-free content. And that's a type of content or a content strategy that you can utilize that allows you to step away from everyone else. See, the thing about Alex and Groove is that any piece of help desk software, and there's many, many of them on the market, can write content about, how to provide support, how to write good help docs. It wasn't anything that was going to really stand out from their competitors. And so once they started to see that their content, they're just like our business is in competition with their business, our marketing can be in competition with other marketing as well. So we have to start to find ways to differentiate what our marketing is doing and how it is working. And that's what I call competition-free content. Now, for Groove, for them, what they ended up doing is they kind of switched the narrative entirely. They started talking about themselves as a startup in that they would share their results. I think it was called $0 to $100,000. And what they were looking at was saying, in our monthly recurring revenue, our goal is to hit $100,000. And right now, we're here, this little dot on a progress bar, we're at, 20K or 30K or something like that. And we're going to open up the kimono. We're going to open up the journey. We're going to tell you all of the strategies that we're trying in order to grow. We're going to share our numbers with you. We're going to talk about our experience raising money, with working with VCs, all these different things that only they could talk about that were very unique to them. And it created this huge upswell in the amount of attention and traffic they were getting. They I think it was a week's time or 2 weeks' time, they added 5,000 new email subscribers to their list. Their list of previously 10,000 went to 15,000 people or more. And they got a lot of attention, and they got a lot of attention from guys like me who run startups and buy help desk software. So it was really a neat way for them to sort of flip that narrative and create something that no one else is, really allowing themselves to stand out. And, that's kind of that concept behind creating content that's competition free.
Yeah, and I love that example. I have followed Groove on their entire journey, and it really has been a fascinating one to watch because, to your point, they're the only ones that could tell it.
Right.
And it's finding that opportunity, that aha moment where Alex sat back and said, are we creating something that we are incredibly proud of? Are we hitting the mark with our content? And obviously the answer was no. And look what they were able to do with it.
Right. And I think, it's very easy to take as a takeaway from that to be, I need to start talking about our business, or I need to copy what Groove is. And I think, the point I'd make is that that's not the takeaway. I think the takeaway is you got to really find out what your thing is. And even at CoSchedule, we had to go through that process. And what we did is we kind of followed 3 different steps. And the first one was we just kind of looked around and we started to say, okay, in our industry and in people that are reading content, from other tools or from other areas of marketing, what are they looking at? What are they reading about? How are they, receiving that content? What does that content look like? And we started to make this list of just some of the consistent patterns we saw. We saw blog posts that tended to be between 5,000 and maybe 1,100 words, something like that, kind of this kind of sweet spot for content at the time. And SEO was about that length. We saw, pretty typical piece of content had 1 image. Maybe it was a stock image, maybe 2 at the most. We saw some consistent patterns we felt in terms of how headlines were used. We saw some consistent patterns in how email was used. And we started to just kind of make this list and say, there's a lot of people that are doing it just like this. And actually, these are a lot of the best these are a lot of the best practices of content marketing. If you go read most of the 5-tip blog posts, like these are going to be the tips that you read. Make it this long and always include an image and do your headlines like this. And we just kind of said, how can we do something different, right? How can we create a strategy that sets us apart? And we chose, several different things that really would make us unique that are in some ways we're in many ways very different than what Groove did. We went with, we're going to create long form content that stretches out to 2,500, 3,000 words. And we're going to do that because it's going to force us to go deeper than the surface level and really, really dig in and create very, very actionable content. We don't want to just provide tips. We want to really tell people how to do better marketing, how they can actually implement this for themselves. We decided that we weren't going to include stock photos. We were going to create custom images. We were going to hire a graphic designer and literally create custom infographics for every single piece of content that we were published. And I think our average blog post now contains like 6 of these types of graphics. We revolutionized and changed very much how we did headlines and approached headlines, how we structured the content. So we took all of these cues and just said, this is how everyone else does it. How can we provide something that's very different and allows us to stand out? And in many ways, we were willing to put in more work into every piece of content we published than everybody else. And that ended up being our competition-free content. And that helped us create, a unique brand for ourselves in the industry.
So if I were a marketer and I'm listening to this and I'm hearing the story about Groove and CoSchedule and how you both have really found your own way, what would be your advice or recommendation to that person that's been testing and trying and just not finding their own content voice or their own vision? What would be your suggestion to them?
Yeah, I think one thing that I think is really important is just making sure you do sort of a self-assessment and really understand what you're good at, like what your strong suit is. I think it's very easy to look at others sometimes or to come up with things that make you different, but they're ultimately not successful because it doesn't embrace what you're really good at as a team or as an individual. And a good example of that is video. For us at CoSchedule, we really saw video a long time ago. And I know video is all the rage today, but in a long time ago, we saw that coming, and we thought, boy, this is going to be a thing. This is going to be somebody's competition-free content. People are going to be able to embrace this and really stand out. But once we looked around at ourselves and what we had in terms of skill, like we were really built to write. We could really create great written content, and we felt like we could completely stand out in that way. So we ended up putting video aside. We ended up not doing it at all until, probably the last couple of years now we've adopted it. But back in the early days, it was just our resources were too precious. We couldn't spread them across written content and video. We had to pick a focus. So I think that's one thing that becomes really important is really figuring out like, what can you do best? What can you provide and create that's very unique? And all the rage and the hype might be behind video, but if that's not your strong suit, you need to put it somewhere else, and you might break away there. The other thing I would say is if they already are testing different ideas, they're on the right track. You just need to keep testing, brainstorm and figure out how to test one idea per week until you start finding things that really make a difference for you. Just test more, test faster. I interview in the book a guy named Noah Kagan, who's a great growth marketer and runs a company called SumoMe. And many people may use some of his free tools, but they do at least 52 tests a year, and they have just an Excel spreadsheet where they write out a test and they write out the results, and they just keep executing that to figure out which things are going to help them grow. And if it doesn't make an impact within a week, they skip it, they shut it down and they move on to the next strategy.
Yeah. And I think you hit on 2 other issues, which so many marketers tend to get plagued with, which is not testing enough or testing too much and overlooking those things that, as you said, they really excel at, they do the best, and they should be doubling down on instead of spreading themselves out so thin.
And I think sometimes it's with testing too much. It's just testing things sometimes that are too small. There are a lot of different variables, but you really have to figure out like what are the ones that really can make an impact, right? Like what are some really big ideas that we can try? I mean, is it publishing, 10,000 word content and instead of doing one every 2 weeks? Like maybe that's, you try that once and you see, maybe it's publishing on LinkedIn. Maybe it's as simple as changing how you do formatting on Facebook or social media, whatever those are. But like, making sure that you scale the test to the potential results, right? It's like some of these things, if you're, it's good to A/B test email subject lines. It's good to test blog post headlines, but they're probably not 10x wins, right? Those are probably slight improvements. You might be able to improve your click-through rate by a few percent, and that's good, but it's you might be able to put your energy somewhere else that could give you a 10x return rather than that just a 1 or 2% improvement.
Well, and so take us through that process. How do you find your 10x projects?
So I outline in the book a brainstorming process that we use pretty frequently here. And, I always kind of like to frame it around a problem or a sentence. And so you kind of start by just saying, okay, if I could grow blank, whatever KPI or metric that you want to grow, let's say it's email signups, right? What do we need to do as a company to grow email signups by 10,000 in the next 3 months? Right, that's a big number, big goal, and you kind of frame your goal very clearly around that. And I have a whole process where we kind of help you identify the one metric to matter and the where you need to focus your energy and what makes most sense for your business, because everyone's a little bit different in terms of which KPI they need to focus on. But once you have that, you kind of set yourself a big goal and you frame this question, like, what if we needed to hit that number in 3 months? What should we do? And you just develop a list of ideas, or, everyone on your team could develop their own list of ideas, come into a room and you start listing them, putting them on a Post-it note, sticking them on the board and talking through all these different ideas and how to get there. The second thing I do is kind of go through all those ideas and rate them using a scale system that I develop in the book, just of 1, 2, and 3, really simple, and how hard it is to complete. If it's going to take a week or less, that's a 1. If it's going to take a couple weeks, that's a 2. If it's going to take 3 weeks or more, that's a 3. That's a really complex idea, right? Like something like we're going to start publishing videos twice a day. Like that's a 3. And then a 1 might be, hey, we're going to remove every piece of content in our sidebar so that customers or readers can focus more on our content. Like that might be a 1. That might be something you can do in a few hours. And anyway, you just rank them so you know how hard they are. And then you start to just kind of assess and ask yourself, like, is this a 10x opportunity? Is this something that has the ability to multiply results? And you have to be really honest with yourself. And this is where it gets tricky. But is this something that has the potential to multiply results by 10 times? Or is this more of a 10% improvement? And every single one, you just write 10x or 10% in the corner. And basically what happens is by the time you're done, you've sort of developed your roadmap. Like it's kind of done for you, because if you have something that's a 1 and a potential 10x opportunity, like that's the thing you're going to do right now or tomorrow morning, right? Like you're going to try that immediately. And a 3 10x opportunity, that might be good, but what you might want to do there is try to figure out, is there a smaller version of this that we can test and see if it works? Or what we do around here is we'll kind of prioritize our 10x 1s, and then once every quarter or so, we'll try a 10x 3 and try and implement that. But we only have done that since we've had a larger team. So it's a really simple way to do that and to find those big ideas. And some will win and will work, and some won't. But if you're focusing on ones that you can implement relatively quickly, you shouldn't be wasting too much time on some of those ideas that don't end up working out.
Yeah, the whole idea is so in line with just the idea of being agile and moving quickly, being able to test and refine, and really understanding where your wins are coming from. So where
Right.
are you succeeding, and what should you double down on, and keeping yourself away or unfocused, I guess, on the new and shiny, which we all get caught up on. And it's, kind of what you were talking about with
Right.
video, videos out there and everybody's doing videos, so I better hop on board. And before you know it, it's sucked all of your team's time and energy away from what you should have stayed focused on.
Yeah, and it's a tough balance, right? And I think that's kind of where I talk about these frameworks that, if you can kind of build yourself these kind of frameworks that you can use, so that in a meeting, in a pinch, when the hype is there, they can, okay, well, let's just take a minute and let's just evaluate, is this a 10x opportunity, or is this going to be something that's going to distract us? Because I think really what it all comes down to is have, yourself as a marketer, your team really finding that way to focus. Groove, they focused. CoSchedule, we really became focused on competition-free content and what we felt was going to really set us apart. And we implemented it, we watched the results, and we hung with it and really pursued it heavily over time. And that's where our major growth came from, because we stayed focused on it. So I think, and that can be hard. I mean, that, I talk about it so, I don't know, quickly, but it can be hard to focus when marketing and our industry is moving as quickly as it does, and things are changing and networks are changing and Facebook rules are changing. There's just so much volatility, but you still have to find ways to focus, because really once you focus and really once you start to invest in those, big ideas, those 10x opportunities, that's where the results come from.
Yeah, staying focused. And I know that that is something that every single marketer out there is trying to wrangle every single day. And what easier way to wrangle your marketing than to get the roadmap and the formula? So to everybody that's listening, Garrett, where can they get their hands on the 10x marketing formula?
Well, of course, 10x marketing formula is available at Amazon.com. We also have, a quick preview, the first chapter available for download at our website at coschedule.com/10x book. So they can get some more information on the book and download the first chapter for free right from there as a PDF.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again. Thank you so much for your time. And I know everybody is going to be thrilled to get their hands on this. So again, thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Rebekah. It was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you again for joining us at the Brand Authority Podcast. My mission is to help growth-driven leaders just like you win more customers, increase revenue, and gain the competitive edge. And whether you're an entrepreneur, maybe you're a small business owner, a tech industry professional, marketer, consultant, or coach, each episode at the Brand Authority Podcast gives you a sneak peek into the systems, the processes, and the skills necessary to create a profitable and authoritative online business. I hope you join us back here next week for another episode of the Brand Authority Podcast. And in the meantime, if you wouldn't mind popping on over to iTunes and click that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all of our latest episodes. And if you would be so kind, give us a 5-star rating and your comment. All of that helps other people just like you find our content. Until next week, we'll see you right back here on the Brand Authority Podcast.